Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us on this webinar today. My name is Piper Robinson. I am an Assistant Dean of Admission at Colgate. Oh my goodness. And I am also an alum. I graduated in 2022, so have some admission experience, some student experience, all of that good stuff. Today, I am joined by two of our current summer interns. They are also current students, and they can introduce themselves. If Zoe, you want to kick us off?
Sounds good. Hi, everyone. My name is Zoe. I'm a rising senior here at Colgate, class of 2026. I'm from Allentown, Pennsylvania, and I'm a philosophy major and a religion minor. On campus, I'm part of different cultural groups like the Black Student Union and Caribbean Students Association, Sisters of the Round Table, as well as Ski and Snowboard Club.
Hi, I'm Henley. I'm a rising junior. I'm from St. Louis. I'm an English major and political science minor, and I'm also involved in the Student Government Association on campus.
Awesome. Well, thank you two particularly for joining us today because your insight is super helpful in providing some guidance for all of those who are joining us today. To give you a little bit of an outline on what this webinar looks like, we are going to start by just talking about some overall tips and tricks for navigating the college process, starting things out strong, and just how to kind of figure out what is the best situation for you. Then we are going to hear a little bit from Henley and Zoe on their own experiences, and they can share their insight that they bring to the table. Then we will have a question and answer period. We should have around 10 minutes for that. So I definitely want to bring attention to the Q&A feature on this webinar. As we continue throughout the 30 minutes, please feel free to leave any questions in there, and we will try to get to as many as possible in that remaining 10 minutes at the very end. Any unanswered questions can be directed to us via email at the end of this webinar if we aren't able to get to those. So we will leave our contact information in the chat once we enter that Q&A period. So before we start off with just some broad tips and tricks, oh my goodness, tongue twister, tips and tricks on starting the college process, I do just want to say that all of you are already in a great place. If you are here today, that means that you are at least thinking about what the future looks like for you, starting the college process in general. I know that summer can sometimes feel like a little bit of a slow period. You definitely want to rest and relax, but I commend you all for being here today and kicking things off with a fun little webinar with the three of us. So, the main importance, I think, in this stage of the college process is really kind of deciding how to best build your list. There are a lot of different types of institutions out there. They offer a lot of different things. They have a lot of different academic structures, social structures, just like cultural aspects of the campus environment. So it's definitely important to learn about the places that you're applying and see if you can envision yourself in those campuses. There are a lot of really great tools that are available online and free of charge. Some of these are niche or niche, however you want to pronounce that. Also, Score, the College Board has some access into how to kind of begin that researching process. And then just, I would say overall, looking into the admission pages on different institutions' websites. Our main goal is to be able to provide you all with the information that you're looking for as you begin this process. And so definitely thinking about kind of narrowing down what you're looking for while you're looking through those different web pages. Some things to think about that I think are important to highlight is definitely the type of institution. So there are four-year institutions. Colgate is a four-year institution, but there are also two-year institutions. There are private and public institutions. Colgate is private. We have a lot of great public institutions in the state of New York. If you're interested in the state of New York, good to think about. We also are a liberal arts institution at Colgate. So that is definitely something that you're going to hear all three of us probably talk a bit about during this webinar. But the liberal arts basically means that you are going to be taking classes in a lot of different areas with the goal of having kind of a well-rounded education. And so Colgate is a liberal arts institution, but there are institutions that aren't necessarily as focused on that kind of broader curriculum, and maybe you can enter and be more specific in what you want to major in right off the bat. Location is also important. I spend a lot of time in speaking with prospective students about location. We are in a very beautiful area in the middle of central New York, so definitely something to think about if you're interested in being around nature, definitely having those seasons. But I do speak with students about how we get a lot of snow. I'm sure that Zoe and Henley can speak to their experiences in central New York winter. But if you are somebody who is like anti-snow, never want to be even the slightest bit cold, maybe New York State isn't for you. Something to think about. Another thing to think about is cost. Cost as a blanket number is probably not the best indicator of what these institutions are actually going to end up costing you. A lot of institutions will provide financial aid that is need-based or merit-based. So even though they can provide a tuition amount for you and say, this is how much it will cost to attend this institution, definitely look into the different aid forms or scholarships that they have available for you to kind of indicate whether or not that price will change and can be more manageable. I also definitely recommend, especially if you're looking at Colgate, looking into our net price calculator. You can find that on Colgate's financial aid webpage. Basically, this will give you a little sneak peek into what your financial aid package could perhaps look like at these different institutions. And so when you're thinking ahead of applying, that's definitely one of the biggest things to consider. So having insight into what that financial aid package can really look like is a very helpful tool that I definitely recommend using to the best of your ability. There are also things to think about on the application end, on the admission side of things. One of those things is how students are read, how the applications are read. At Colgate, we read applications holistically. What we mean by that is we really want to get the best sense of who you are as a well-rounded individual. Yes, we are definitely looking at those grades, at the rigor of your courses, but we're also paying close attention to your essay, to your extracurriculars, to the recommendations. All of the things that you submit to us really paint that picture of who you are as a student and who you are as a community member and who you can be on our campus. Although a lot of institutions that are very similar to Colgate will kind of have this holistic review process in their own way, there are also institutions that will have more of a threshold-based review process. So maybe they will say students at this GPA point and above are admissible for joining our community. Definitely things to not only research in your own time, but also you can speak to regional admission officers about these things and answer these questions. I am a regional admission officer. I have a set amount of territories that I oversee, and that is a pretty similar structure across the board for a lot of other institutions. So definitely look into who your regional admission officer is and how to contact them for any questions you may have. One thing that I have definitely learned in this position as an assistant dean of admission is how many amazing institutions there are out in the world. There are so many different colleges and universities, so many different ways to continue your education and build community. And it can be really overwhelming to think about the amount of places that are available to you. It's a very exciting time, but we also want to ensure that you are taking care of yourself and managing stress. A lot of that can be done in shrinking your pool. What I mean by this is to really think about what those institutions are that you're looking at specifically and cutting out any that might be on that kind of borderline. I don't really know if I could see myself here. I'm just applying willy-nilly. So some things that might kind of help shape that pool are the size of the institution, maybe the professor relationships, if it's more of a tight-knit community, or if you're going to be in more of a kind of TA-based or teacher's assistant-based learning structure, what activities are available, the culture of the institution. All of those things can help weed out potential institutions that aren't as much of a fit and can help you at least make things a little bit more manageable on your end as you're completing those applications, because that can definitely take a lot of time and be a daunting process for sure. Lastly, I definitely think that if you are able to plan a visit to a campus, it can be a really great experience. If not, you are not at any sort of detriment. We have a lot of great online resources as a whole in higher ed, so definitely look into things like virtual tours or virtual information sessions. But if you are able to make it to a campus that you're interested in, it can be really great to walk around, see how the community interacts with one another, see the campus and how students kind of interact with the surrounding area as well. Definitely can be helpful in figuring out what is the best place for you. We've got some rowdy students who are very excited, so apologize for any background noise, but I'm going to focus on these two students for right now, and we're going to turn to some discussion questions. So to kick things off, can you each tell us a little bit about your college search process from the beginning? And Zoe, you can start us off.
All right. Well, I was a senior in high school in 2022. So I was really searching for colleges towards the end of COVID. Everything was still a bit different. So a lot of my college search happened via the internet. I stumbled across Colgate as one of the top liberal arts schools, and I'm like, wow, what's really up with this small school in the middle of upstate New York? And I think it took visiting here to really understand the charm that Colgate has to offer and just seeing all those resources firsthand. But I knew that I wanted to go to a liberal arts school. I think that was a no-brainer. I love the whole idea of having control in the direction of your education. So I think Colgate has definitely it has proven to be the best fit for me in that regard.
Awesome. Thank you, Zoe. Henley.
Yeah, so I have three older siblings, and they all went to small liberal arts schools on the East Coast. So I guess that was like implicitly ingrained into my mind that that was something I wanted to do too. And it was. So I started looking, I think it was spring break of my junior year. I did a few tours of schools like in the East Coast, it's definitely smaller size. Colgate was actually one of the bigger ones that I was looking at. But then I just narrowed it down. I knew I visited a few schools like in more urban areas, and I knew that that wasn't really something I wanted. I wanted more of like a community oriented school where people weren't leaving on the weekends. You were staying with your people on campus and in the town. And then I just narrowed it down from there.
Great. Thank you both. One thing that I noticed in both of your answers is that you spoke about the liberal arts. So, as promised, we're going to talk a little bit more about the liberal arts. If you two had to describe the liberal arts in two sentences, how would you describe that? Maybe that's how that kind of education structure takes place, what you enjoy about it, all of those good things. Zoe, if you want to start.
I don't know if I have two sentences, but one sentence I will say, it's up to you. So there is not really a core curriculum. Like you don't have to take a chemistry class if you don't want to. You can go all 4 years without taking a math class too. So the classes are up to you. What you learn is up to you, and kind of not to get all like philosophical, but like your future's up to you as well. And it just it depends on how hard you work and what classes you want to take and if you want to put in the effort. So I feel like Colgate is definitely that's what sums it up.
I love that. I'm definitely going to use that when speaking with prospective students. Thank you, Zoe. I think that I don't know, that really rings true because especially when I speak with prospective students about what a core curriculum really is, they're very much used to that kind of structured take two math, take two science. And the liberal arts doesn't have that kind of confining methodology. It's really about structuring it to your own interests and being engaged in the classroom. So I appreciate that perspective. Henley, if you want to give us your two sentences or one sentence or whatever.
Yeah, I'd say that the liberal arts really allows you to kind of explore and find what you're passionate about. I came in thinking I was going to be a history major. I have not taken a history class. I've taken an acting class, which is like so out of my realm and my comfort zone. So there's just a lot of time to explore what you might be interested in. You can take a class and find that that's not what you want to do. Actually, you want to do something completely different. The liberal arts really allows you for that exploration.
I love that, and I think that kind of trickles into our next question. You both definitely touched on this, but could you speak a little bit more on the benefits to a liberal arts college and why that ended up being what you chose?
I think a liberal arts college definitely offers a lot of resources, kind of more that are catered to the student experience. And I don't know, I think it's just, especially Colgate, but the liberal arts education has definitely made students like well-rounded and you take classes from all different departments. Like even Henley's taken an acting class as an English major, which kind of goes, but it's still not really traditional for a lot of other schools. But I think the whole point of the liberal arts education is to reimagine traditional topics and traditional classes in a new way that can prove that it's not just sitting in a classroom and learning from your desk and taking exams, but it's actually interacting not only with your classmates and the professors, but also the environment that you're in, whether it be traveling around the world through our study abroad programs or even just traveling in upstate New York for Colgate. So I think it just, yeah, I think it a few benefits.
Yeah, those are definitely big ones to touch on. I appreciate that. Henley,
Yeah, so a part of our core curriculum, we only have one class that every Colgate student's required to take. That's called Core Conversations, and that isn't even like a set of standards that every class follows. What that class is you're basically just reading a set of books, and who the professor is, what profession or field that they are in is totally different depending on the class. How they choose to teach it is totally different. And I feel like that course is like though it's a requirement, it's like definitely a kind of quintessential like liberal arts course. My professor was in the philosophy department and he wanted to have the class look a little bit different than most other ones. So like every day our class was in a different classroom around campus, kind of exploring around campus. All of our assignments were like in person in class. So we didn't have like that tests and exams or anything like that, which is definitely like more extreme on the liberal arts end. But that class like really made me fall in love with the liberal arts. And I took that my first semester freshman year. So I kind of saw all of the different possibilities within even a required course. Like it can look so many different ways. That class also kind of inspired me to become an English major. I again like thought that I wasn't going to study that. And then after just reading a set of books and talking about them and writing about them, I was like, oh, that can be my major. I can just do this. So that class, even though it's a requirement, it really speaks to like the liberal arts. And I think that there's so many benefits to all of that, all the opportunities in that.
wonderful. Yeah, I completely agree. And I think um, we've definitely kind of centered the liberal arts on how that comes about in Colgate's experience. So I appreciate both of your perspectives. You both spoke on this a little bit in our first question, but I think that when thinking about starting the college process, it's important to look at it as a whole. And so one of the aspects of that can be really kind of narrowing it down which institution is right for you, whether that's deciding to apply early decision to an institution. Maybe you've been admitted to multiple institutions and kind of narrowing in on which one you end up enrolling in. So if you two could just speak to the things that you were thinking about and maybe how Colgate rose above the rest for you, that would be amazing.
Yeah, so I knew I wanted to go to a liberal arts school, but I still applied to public schools, especially larger universities. So I think Colgate is unique because it's a combination of everything that I was looking for. So it has the small class sizes with about 18 students in every class. It has the 9-to-1 faculty ratio where students get a lot of attention from professors and you're never really lost in a lecture hall. And then in terms of location, I kind of wanted to have a little getaway from regular life. So being in upstate New York has definitely proven to be my getaway. It's my little bubble away from home. And I don't know. I think there's something about being in such a remote location where you're only focusing at on academics and finding other things to do on campus. So we always say it here, but Colgate has its own social life in itself. And you are excluded a little bit from the rest of the world, but it definitely has its perks as well. Um, and then I was also looking for a school that would challenge me. So I went to a public high school. I did take honors courses and AP courses, but even then, it was kind of like a little bit of boredom in the classroom. So I wanted to have a university that would challenge me and really push me out of my comfort zone. And I think Colgate has definitely succeeded. And I don't know, that was one of my important qualities that I was looking for in a university. So the fact that Colgate had all of those in one, ooh, sorry about that. The fact that Colgate offered all of those in one, I think was really important.
Great. Thank you, Zoe. Henley.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with everything Zoe said. For my process, I was between a few schools and I was between two, and they were kind of on the opposite ends of the liberal arts spectrum. Colgate was not one of them. I wasn't really initially thinking about Colgate, I just didn't know too much about it. And then my dad, one day, I was like ranting to him. I wasn't sure which one I wanted to pick. And my dad suggested that Colgate would be a good in between, a good mix of both. And I kind of rolled my eyes and I was like, wow, how is Colgate different from the rest? Which is, I probably shouldn't admit that here, but I did think that at first. And then he felt really passionate that it would be a great mix of like rigorous academics that I was looking for, a vibrant social scene, and like the D1 athletics, which would be really fun to attend those games. So he actually booked a flight like 3 days later, after we had this conversation, to Hamilton, New York, to Syracuse, and then to drive to Hamilton, which coming from St. Louis is no easy journey. But I was a little begrudging in the car ride up, thinking there's no way that this is going to be the answer to all my decisions. But once we pulled up onto campus, I kind of had that gut feeling, and I was like, okay, yeah, this is the place to me, the place for me. And then I toured, and everything my tour guide said really resonated with me, and it just felt like the most perfect place. What's funny was the deadline for my high school's early decision was that Monday, and we were visiting on like a Friday. So it was a really quick turnaround, but I was like, had not a doubt in my mind that I was going to apply early decision. And thankfully, it all worked out, and I did. But it really was just like a good mix of everything that I was really looking for.
I did not know that story, Henley. I love that. That's so funny. Yeah, so I think that it's pretty clear that the college process can take you a lot of different directions. And so, how you may be feeling in this current moment isn't necessarily how you will be feeling come November, maybe if you've applied early decision somewhere, or March when you start to hear back from different institutions. So, definitely keep that in mind that this is a journey. And that is exactly right. It's not. Something where you can just be one and done. So really embrace that journey and learn a lot and start to think about what you want in your future 4 years or 2 years, whatever that looks like. So we have about 5 minutes left, and we have some really great questions in here. But the first one that I saw, I think, definitely resonates to what we were talking about in terms of thinking about all of these different things that make up your college choices, and that is location. The question itself says, have you all had any issues finding opportunities for hands-on work or practice in your field given the small towns surrounding you? But I'm even going to expand that and just say, how is kind of being in that small town shaping your experience? And were you even considering maybe going to an institution that's in a larger environment?
Yeah, I think it was definitely an adjustment. I knew that Hamilton was a small town. I knew it was a college town too, but if you guys have ever visited the campus, and Henley and Piper know, it's literally like 3 or 4 streets in Hamilton, and the rest are going to be neighborhoods. So it's easy to kind of just pass through the town without blinking an eye. But I think when you really get to know the different businesses in town, going out to eat at different restaurants, or even just going to Hamilton Eatery for lunch, then it definitely does feel like a community in itself. And you don't need a larger location in order to feel that sense of like society, socialization. But I think it's definitely, it takes a shift in the mindset of what you consider to be fun or what you consider to be your community. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, we always say when we're giving tours, like I've heard a lot of my coworkers say that it kind of has the best of like the big school and small school vibes. Honestly, like it is a very small school and a very small community, but that allows you to really like get a sense of all of the opportunities on campus. It has that big sense and where it's like the D1 athletics, like I mentioned, and like just a ton of Colgate pride. I feel like everyone who goes here like really wants to be here. They want to be in that middle of nowhere environment, and they want to be surrounded and living with all of their friends in this small community where you're taking classes just a few steps away from your dorm. So everyone here like really wants to uphold that community-based aspect and the many Colgate traditions, which if you come, I'm sure you'll get to know. But I really love Colgate in that sense. But in terms of like the smaller size of it and that kind of isolation aspect, there's so many opportunities. We have a really strong career services program, which is really like run by the alums, and how close and how what a love for Colgate the alums have. That really increases our opportunities. But that career services building is like on the main academic quad. It's not just shoved aside somewhere. They have a 4-year plan for you, and it's a really great resource to go to if you have any career related questions. And that they know you by name, they know you very well. They know your major and all your interests because of that small size. So that's just like one example that I love to say when I'm giving tours, for that example of like a tight knit community has a lot of resources, and that's one of the best ones.
Great answers, both of you. We are almost out of time, so we have a lot of great questions in the Q&A. I am going to use one more question, and while Henley and Zoe give their answers, I am going to put all of our contact information in the chat. So if your question wasn't answered today, definitely feel free to reach out to any of us, and we are happy to help. But final question, as summer interns, you work a lot with prospective students, you give tours, you speak to students through Colgate admission conversations. What is one piece of advice you would like to give these students at the start of their college process?
I think I always say pick the school that you resonate with the most. Um, Honestly, I think that anyone can make a good situation out of a not ideal situation, but it definitely helps when you're comfortable and you're in an environment where you have room to grow. So pick the university that's not going to hold you back. If that's Colgate, then welcome. Like, go Gate. If it's not, then maybe another school will welcome you with open arms.
I would say that with your application, with your Common App essay or whatever personal essay form you're submitting, and with your supplementals for each school, like really make it personal, really make it yourself, because I think like Piper and the other admissions officers, what they're looking for isn't just like an application that just checks all the boxes. They really want one that's personalized and has kind of an overall story to tell within your application. And I know that that was one thing that was really hard for me, is to kind of make it personal and make it my own. But I think that's really beneficial.
Alrighty, I am going to put that into the chat now. So everybody, if you would like to make note of our contact information, please feel free to do so. And thank you all for joining us today. It was great to speak about this. Special thanks to Henley and Zoe for being such great panelists. And yeah, reach out if we can be helpful in any way. Thank you.